40b. Okay. So let's the last point that we were saying, Amar Ravina. You see, the question yesterday was regarding cooking with the waters of Tiberia. As we said yesterday, that there is a dispute if the waters of Tiberia are heated up, considered heated up by the sun, the natural springs, or the waters of Tiberia are considered heated up by on the entranceway of Gehenna. And that was a machloket that we had in the Gemara earlier. And on 40b, around 40b3, towards the right side of the page, the bottom of the page, on the bottom, Amar Ravina. And when they went to the bathhouse, and one of the young rabbis wanted to go ahead and take the jar of oil and put it into the hot springs of Tiberia, and the other rabbi told him that you can't do that. You have to go ahead and take it in a kli sheni. You have to go ahead and take the waters of those springs, let's say the waters of Tiberia, and put them into a second utensil, put into a utensil that will be considered a kli sheni, a second utensil, and then you can go ahead and put the oil in that water if you want to go ahead and heat up the oil, because kli sheni would not be mevashel. The second keli, second utensil, would not go ahead and cook. So the Gemara says, Amar Ravina. So Ravina says, Shema mina. We see from here the fact that he told him to do that. Hamevashel b'chamei Tiberia b'Shabbat chayav. If somebody goes ahead and cooks in the hot springs of Tiberia on Shabbat, he would be chayav. He would be violating the Shabbat on a Torah level, because the Hamaseh de Rebbe, this story of Rebbe, when Rebbe told him to go ahead, when Rabbi Yitzchak bar Avdimi was following Rebbe into the bathhouse, that was la'achak gzeira have. That was after the gzeira. You know, the rabbis already had made a decree that you can't go to a bathhouse, right? Originally, people used to take baths on Shabbat. You used to take hot baths on Shabbat with water that was heated up before Shabbat. And then the rabbi saw that the people were heating the water up on Shabbat and claimed that they heated up before Shabbat. The rabbi says no bath on Shabbat, even with water that was heated up before Shabbat. Well, Amalei, so this is post Gzeira, and the post Gzeira. So how can you go into the bathhouse if it's after the Gzeira? How can you go into the bathhouse? The answer was that the bathhouse is the bathhouse of Tiberia. And yet, and it was a bathhouse of Tiberia, and on that place of Tiberia, they did not, they did not make the decree. Okay, but they did not make the decree. V'amalei tov b'kli sheni v'sein. And yet, Rebbe tells Rabbi Yitzchak, he tells him that go ahead and put into a kli sheni. He says that you can't go ahead. Good morning, Simon. You can't go ahead and heat up the oil in the bath itself. The bath itself is kli rishon, even though we're talking about the waters of Tiberia. So so if it's the waters of Tiberia, so it would seem that cooking in the waters of Tiberia would be forbidden, because why did he tell him to go ahead and use a kli sheni? So the Gemara says, what do you mean? Is that so? If you cook with the waters of Tiberia on Shabbat, you are patur. You do not violate the Shabbat on a Torah level. You don't give the guy skila. You don't go ahead and he's not obligated to korban chatat if he cooks in the waters of Tiberia. So how could you say that um, that he's chayav? So the Gemara says, my chayav. What do I mean that if you cook in the waters of Tiberia, you would be chayav? It means my chayav the komanami makat mardut. What he means is that he would be obligated lashes, rabbinic lashes. There's something called rabbinic lashes. What's rabbinic lashes? A person who go ahead and violates rabbinic law intentionally, he will get lashes, rabbinic lashes. Let's say it would sound like if a person goes ahead and intentionally says, I don't care about mukseh, right? That might be a case that if a person would say he doesn't care about mukseh, he's not interested in rabbinic law, so there could be lashes for such a person. And cooking in the waters of Tiberia would be rabbinically prohibited. It's not prohibited on a Torah level, but this opinion but he holds that on a rabbinic level, if you cook in the waters of Tiberia, there's a rabbinic prohibition. Rabbanan, why did the rabbi say you can't cook in the waters of Tiberia? Because the same way they said you can't cook in the derivatives of the sun. So the waters of Tiberia, let's say, are not heated up by fire. They're not. Let's say we're not going with the opinion that they're heated up by Gehenna. They're heated up by the sun. But now, if you're going to go ahead and take something else and put it into the waters of Tiberia, people are not going to know necessarily that it was heated up by that it's the waters of Tiberia. They might think it's it was heated up by fire, perhaps. So therefore, the rabbi said that there is a rabbinic prohibition of taking. If you go ahead and you take an item and you put it into you take a raw item and you would use the waters of Tiberia to cook that raw item, right? You take let's say you take oil and you put it into the waters of Tiberia. And now as a result of that bottle of oil will get cooked up. So that would be a rabbinic prohibition of using the waters of Tiberia. If it would not be the waters of Tiberia, if you use waters that of a pot of water that was cooked, that would be a biblical prohibition to take a pot of oil, a jug of oil, and put it into a hot pot of water that was cooked through a fire. And then you put the jug of oil in, because that hot pot of water, since it was cooked by fire, that's a derivative of fire. And then as you put a jug of oil in that would be a biblical prohibition. But this water was not cooked by a fire. This water was the water of Tveria. So there's a rabbinic prohibition for a person to go ahead and go ahead and put oil that was not cooked, a bottle of oil, into the waters of Tiberia to cook. Now I think the Rabbeinu Hananel, one of the commentaries that say, how many lashes, there's a discussion, how many lashes is this rabbinic lashes? The lashes of the Torah is 39 lashes, right? The Torah, a person is warned not to, let's say, not kosher. Adam, if you don't mind, could you set up that? I forgot to put the chair over there. If a person goes ahead and eats not kosher, and he was warned not to eat, got to eat kosher, right? This thing is not kosher fish, right, Simon? So then that prohibition, generally speaking, when the Torah says don't do something and you violate it, if it's an action type of thing like eating, that would carry lashes, right? Torah says don't eat this, don't eat a pig, right? And the Torah, and there's 39 lashes for such a thing. Right, so the Torah says arba'im, it means up to 40. It means arba'im means 40 and not including 40. So it's not, even though it sounds like 40 lashes, the Simon is talking about the language of the Pasuk says arba'im yakenu, give 40, but the Gemara says it does not mean 40, even though it sounds like that, meaning the Gemara says it's 39 lashes. But the question is, how many lashes do you give a guy for being rebellious against rabbinic law? So I think I saw one of the commentary, one opinion is that you give him lashes until he accepts. He did not. This commentary did not give a number, but you give him enough lashes until he accepts. Until he accepts the, you know, what the, you know, you accept what you tell, that he's going to do tshuva, that he's not going to do this again. Um, that is one of the opinions of how many you give. Would have to be researched more, more detail. What of all the opinions exactly? How many lashes would have to be given? Um, okay, so that point of the Gemara. Amar Rav Zera. Rav Zera now. Um, Rav Zera says the following. Anoch hazitei, now should be on the next page already in the art scroll. Should be on 40b, 40b4. Amar Rav Zera on the right side. Anoch hazitei lebavo b'shot be'ambate. I saw Rabavo. He was in a bathtub, and when you're in a bathtub, it was on the Shabbat. It was filled with cold water because we already post the gezerah, post the enactment. You can't take a hot water bath on Shabbat, even with water that was filled up and heated up before Shabbat. So he saw that Rav Zera, Rav Avohu, looked like he was floating in the bath. He was in the bath, but he didn't know whether the he actually was off the ground. Was he actually floating in the bath? Did he uproot it? Did he lift up his feet from the ground and actually float there in the bath? Or really his feet were still on the ground? One answer. He was in the bath. He was in the bathtub, but maybe his feet were still on the ground. And and that was his question, whether Rabbi Avu allowed a person to float in a small little tub. And let's say a cold bath on the Shabbat in a small tub, is it allowed or not allowed? Good morning. That is the question that he's trying to figure out regarding what did Rabbi Avu do in this bathtub. Now, even though the rabbis said that you don't go ahead and swim on the Shabbat, and Shabbat or on Yom Tov, and the Gemara says because maybe you're going to go ahead and make some sort of raft. Um, they use that maybe to help you learn how to swim, and therefore you'll be building this item on the Yom Tov or on the Shabbat. Therefore, that's why you would not be able to go ahead and swim. And but it's not when you're in a bathtub, no one's really building a raft to teach yourself how to swim when you're in a bathtub. When you're in a river, if you're going to be swimming in a river, you might be building certain type of things to help you when you're training you in your swimming abilities. But that's a river, a lake, ocean. But what about a bathtub? Would there be or a small little pool? Would there be a problem of floating the feet off the ground or not? So the Gemara first said, "Shita de loaka." It can't be that he. Mark, you got it. The bottom right side, right. So obviously he didn't uproot his feet. The Tanya, because we learned in a Breita, lo yoshut adam bebrecha malei mayim. A person can't float, swim in a pool full of water, afilu omedet bechatzer, even if the pool is in the courtyard, meaning a pool that's in public property. So then there's a concern. Maybe he might go ahead. Some of the water will go outside the knocks. Put splash some water outside the pool, and it'll travel 4 amot. That might be a problem, a concern if you have a pool in a public street, and the water would come out. But or if you're in an ocean, the ocean has also, there might be other issues of the carrying of the water. Maybe some of the water will be pushed a certain amount and outside the river. But right. So that's what the Gemara is saying, that even if there's no concern of the water going from this pool outside into public property, which would be a problem of carrying the water. But there's still a problem. But we have a Breita that says you can't, well, Yoshid, you can't go in and go into this pool that's full with water, even if it's in the courtyard. So the courtyard, it's in your backyard. You could carry in your courtyard. So the water, if you kick the water out of the pool, it's not a problem. But still, it says you can't do it. You can't go ahead and swim in a pool filled with water, even if it's in the courtyard. So obviously, say it again.
You can't swim.
Yeah, but the question is, where is the source? Where is the source? Where is the source? Where does it come from? Where does it come from? Where does it come from? This prohibition of this issue of the $1 million cash. Where is the source for this law? Right. We have to see the source for the law. We'll see from the Gemara that it's not so simple. We'll see from the Gemara that it's not so simple. The issue of the problem of swimming on Shabbat in certain places. Meaning to say, we're going to see from our Gemara that swimming in an ocean on Shabbat, right? Swimming in an ocean on Shabbat, or swimming in a river on Shabbat, that's clear. There's no question about it. Nobody could go swimming there. But the question here in our pools, look in our Gemara.
So that's like the bathtub, you said.
Right, the bathtub. Right. So he was in this bathtub. So the question is, our pool's like a bathtub or not? So look what the Gemara is going to say. The Gemara says, Lo kasha. You can't compare the two. Why not? Because now we're turning the page. The let leg geduday, the Breita that says that you can't go ahead and swim in a pool that's in a courtyard. is the Let's Day. There's no rim on top of the pool. And if you don't have a rim on top of a pool, so therefore that's flat, that's like a river. It's very similar to a river. And therefore they would forbade you to go ahead and use a type of pool that's flat, that resembles a river. But the story about what? Say it again. Yeah, it's a straight pool with no. It's just flat. Yeah, so that would be a problem. However, a pool that has the pool has a rim. But the story of Avo was a story of a pool that had a rim, which is not similar to a river. And therefore, Rav Zera had a question whether there was a prohibition in that type of pool or not. Right? So let's see. We'll take out the Yalkut Yosef. That was the. Floating is floating swimming. You see, he's saying floating is like swimming if your feet are off the ground. Right. That's called floating. That's how the Gemara is referring. The Gemara's translation is if his feet were off the ground. The Gemara compares that to the swimming. If the feet are off the ground, if you're sitting in the tub and your feet are just on ground, that's because again, what's the issue? The issue is maybe you're going to come to make something, to help you come to make a life saver or a raft or whatever to teach you help you in your swimming abilities. That's only if you have to be off the ground. But if you're not off the ground, right? So that's not gonna be the issue. Now, so we're gonna have to see more in the halacha about this. But just based on our Gemara, the Gemara does not conclude. Our Gemara does not conclude whether he was off the ground and he actually allowed like a little pool. Now remember, there's all different issues. For the Ashkenazic community, there's all different concerns about, you're here. If you're going to go the same way, we won't take a cold shower on Shabbat, or the same way we don't, you won't go ahead and bathe in a river on Shabbat. Not even though you're not swimming in a river. Your feet are on the ground. We don't, because of issues with here, maybe squeezing here and those type of things, which someone brought up to me. So therefore, Ashkenazim definitely won't go ahead and go swimming on Shabbat. The question is, in the Sephardic community, would we say, because they in the Shulchan Aruch, the Shulchan Aruch does not have a problem with a guy walking into a river on Shabbat, obviously without clothing, because you can't get your clothing wet, and just being careful not squeezing your hair, cold river on Shabbat. You can't. The Sfardim, of course, will hold you can't. No, everybody knows you can't swim in a lake, in an ocean. The only question would be, how do we look at a pool that has a rim on it? That would be the question. Now, somebody brought up my following question. Now, in the Sephardic community, do people take cold showers on Shabbat? If the answer is yes, so the question is, how can we ensure that the people don't use hot water when they're taking a cold shower? It's a very difficult thing for a person to take every week, week in, week out, a cold shower without any hot water. This is what someone brought up to me. If a guy, once in a while, a person is sweating and it's, the weather is so hot. Okay, in the summer, because again, maybe because it's not an every week thing that he's doing the whole year round. Here's my concern. This was the person's concern. A person who takes a cold shower 52 weeks a year, it's hard to be. I presume it's challenging for the person not to put on the hot water when he's taking that cold shower. Because you can't put, if you turn that hot water switch, you are, you might, depending, there might be that issue, biblical problem, depending how the system works, whatever it is. I'm just bringing up the point, the practical point. Tell a 13-year-old boy, make sure you take an ice cold shower every Shabbat. I'm wondering, I'm just bringing up the practical, and then this other point that the person said was a lady when they dry their hair, you don't think they squeeze that's so how is that? So that's another concern that they brought up regarding men don't have so much hair to squeeze, but the ladies I think are much more of that issue. So that's just a practical, Ravaji talks about, if you pour cold water on yourself, you got best to wait a little bit meaning I presume if you took a shower, wait, let the water fall off a little bit before you go ahead and dry it. Give a little time to okay. So that ends that piece.
Back to the room with the pool.
Right.
Room with the pool, like that.
Right. So our Gemara did not, in the Yalkut Yosef, they send me to, in the Kishlach Aruch, they send us to the second volume of the Shabbat edition. Take a look. There's a lot of that. Okay, so the Yalkut Yosef, the Kishlach Aruch, let's look at, let's see, Hilchos Shabbat. He says, Yalkut Amud Zion, Shabbat. So I have to find this edition. I have to find the edition which he discusses it. But okay, we have to get back to this what he has to say on the subject. But that's our Gemara. So now we have an understanding of what's going on, and now we have to see. I'm just bringing up some other issues regarding guys going swimming. There obviously will be issues of the hair. That will be something that people will have to be aware of. But
him floating in the tub. Where we were
right. So the Gemara said he floated in the tub, but he did. But the rabbi said, I don't know. Did he actually pick his feet off the ground? Meaning, which would be similar to swimming. Did he actually swim when you're off the ground, or was he actually
feet on the ground.
the feet on the ground? So the Gemara did not conclude. Okay. Omar Rab Zera. Rab Zera says now we're discussing regarding the waters. People going taking baths. Ani chasitei l'Rabavo. I saw Rabavo when he was washing, when he was bathing. Sheniach yadav keneged panav shel mater. He put his hands down by his private area to cover up his private area because he was modest. He covered up his front bottom. But v'lo yadana, I don't know if he was careful not to touch his actual, not to touch.
It says lower face. They don't mean face.
The face. They mean the front, the private area, right? But I don't know. Naga lo naga. I don't know if he touched or he didn't touch. So the Gemara says, "What do you mean pshita de lo naga?" It's obvious that he did not touch, because the Gemara says the concern that maybe if he goes ahead and he touches that area, he'll go ahead and it will lead to seminal by mistake. It can lead to nothing to do with Shabbat. Nothing to do with Shabbat. the man went ahead and when he bathed, so he didn't.
Does this mean men don't, whoever don't touch their body?
They don't touch the all the way in the meaning that there's a place that they could meaning the place of the circumcision. Let's say if this is the thing, they won't touch here underneath. Maybe they'll touch the top over here, the top, but they wouldn't touch underneath here because that would be concern. They could call it ba'ama. Anybody holds that area and umashtin and urinates ki'ilu maybe mabula ulam. It's like he brings a flood. Why is like it brings a flood? Because that was one of the sins that they did in that generation of the flood. They wasted seed, and therefore it compares it to wasting seed. So in Shulchan Aruch, it says the following: Simin Gimel, the third siman in Shulchan Aruch. He says, don't hold that area unless because of the problem of shichva zera levatala. Now he says, now so let's see. So he went ahead and let's see in the Yalkut Yosef. Let's see if he talks about this also over here in Siman Gimel. Okay, maybe we'll just continue. So it says like this. Amar Abaye. So Abaye says, Asu'uha kibeloshes. He made it's this case is similar to an army. Also, by the way, we have to look also. The Shulchan Aruch discusses someone who's married. There might be less issues because he's much more under control than someone. There's a certain spot that he says that a single person can't touch, but a married person would be able to touch. But it's better even the married man. But there's certain leniencies that someone who's married. There's certain leniencies more for a person that's married than a guy who's not married regarding touching certain areas over there. So, but for sure, someone who's not married, if he be touching the wrong spot, well, it's as if he brought a marble to the world. So the Gemara's question is, so you're saying because you're saying he's married. Okay, that's a good point. That's a good point. Unless it was a time of his life that he was older, and his wife had passed away, perhaps. Or
I would imagine the older person too, it's
less probably, yeah, his thoughts are more under control. But so it says, Abaye says the question is asu kiveloshes, shifreloshet. Meaning we have a mission that says if let's say there's an army that's coming to town and they come into the house of the Jew. So it depends if it was a time of peace or not a time of peace. Time of peace, then there's afraid maybe the army would take some of the wine and pour some of the wine to avodah zarah, or maybe he would handle the wine. And therefore we're going to say We're going to make it. We're going to talk about barrels that are open, barrels that are closed. But during the time of war, even the barrels that are opened, you don't have to be afraid that he's going to handle the barrels because he doesn't have time to pour the wine up with the zara when it's wartime. So because since move the wine, move the wine, right? But right. But
If he touches the barrel, he thinks about it, done.
it's the move, but the
Yeah.
right, but because he is busy with war, he's afraid of he's busy. He's not going to be involved in the wine. We don't have to be afraid that he's going to touch the handle of the wine. So too, the Gemara says, but if he's washing in the river, he's afraid that he shouldn't drown. You know, he shouldn't get swept up in the river. So maybe that's the question. Maybe he's so busy in that his mind is not going to be concerned. He's coming to think about women or think about things while he's busy. Just like a doctor, if a doctor who's a gynecologist, he's busy in he's doing his medical stuff. So even though he might touch areas of the woman that are private, being he's busy in his work, we're not concerned that he's going to have thoughts. So when the man is busy, when a guy is busy in washing and bathing in the river, so that's the question: is there a does he have to be concerned to not where he touches his hand while he's bathing in the river? Because since he's preoccupied, his mind is preoccupied in protecting himself, so therefore we don't have to be as concerned. Or and that was his question, or how would we look at such a situation in life? Okay. I want to wish everyone a beautiful day. Great to have you.